Would everybody please take a seat so we get started? Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone to the town meeting for the town of Woodbridge. I am Lawrence Greenberg. I'm the town moderator. I would entertain a motion to waive the reading of the lengthy notice of meeting tonight. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I will read the return that Geraldine S. Shaw, clerk of the Board of Selectmen, regarding the notice. I, Geraldine S. Shaw, clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Woodbridge, Connecticut, hereby certify that I caused a copy of the notice of the annual town meeting duly called by the Board of Selectmen for May 16, 2005, and bearing the signatures of all or a majority of the town selectmen, to be posted on the town signpost on April 29, 2005, and that I caused the meeting of said notice to be mailed to each citizen and elector eligible to vote in the town meeting of the town of Woodbridge. And furthermore, I caused a copy of said notice to be published in the New Haven Register, a newspaper having a general circulation of the town of Woodbridge, in its issue of May 5, 2005. Dated May 13, 2005, Geraldine S. Shaw, clerk of the Board of Selectmen. First item of business on the agenda tonight is the budget for fiscal year 2005-2006. And Tony, there have been some changes to the budget that was originally sent to everyone, and Tony will explain the changes. Tony Genovese, the Finance Director of the town. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Since the preliminary budget hearing, the Board of Finance has made 6 changes to the budget, which are on the screen in front of you. The first change was to the Woodbridge Board of Education to reflect an increase in health insurance and retirement costs that were not present at the time of the preliminary hearing. So that was increased by $42,000 to reflect those costs. In general administration, in the last line of capital expenditures, the budget was increased from $5,200 to $6,400 to reflect some additional purchases for our GATBOC program, which is actually taken here tonight. The third change was a decrease in our waterways reserve, which serves as a reserve for projects that are related to waterways, obviously, including bridges, culverts, and the like, and reduced by $25,000 to reflect a reassessment of our town's needs. The fourth change on the expenditure side was an increase in $17,15 for the air pack purchase, which just reflects some final interest costs that we had at the time that we have now currently. On the revenue side of the budget, our investment income was increased by $50,000, and that reflects our updated rates that we are receiving from our investments, and they continue to increase, which is we're happy about. And finally, our fund balance appropriation was decreased from $525,000 to $500,000. The last year's budget had a fund balance appropriation of $400,000, and I recommended that a 25% increase in 1 year was sufficient based on our current fund balance level. We do have some additional revenue adjustments or uncertainties that are facing us, which we will review and work with the Board of Finance on settling the mill rate. And the first is our post-Board of Assessment Appeals grand list information, which has decreased a bit, so we will review that. State revenue continues to be uncertain, and one example of that is a potential real estate conveyance tax, additional revenue in there. And finally, we're receiving a lot of good news on our interest income. So there will be no recommended change in the mill rate. It would just be some realignment of some of the numbers for the revenue uncertainties. Thank you.
As we usually do, the first item of business, we will go through each of the departments in town. If anybody has any questions or comments regarding the budget for each department, now will be the time to hear those comments or questions. First would be the Woodbridge Board of Education. The preliminary recommendation of the Board of Finance is $10,300,000. Final recommendation, $10,342,000. Please identify yourself by name and address.
Hi, my name is Leslie Martino. I'm the chair of the Woodbridge Board of Education. I live at 70 Penny Lane. I just wanted to, even though tomorrow night when the Board of Ed meets, we'll have some very difficult decisions to make, I wanted to extend my thanks to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance in particular for putting in the $42,000 to reflect the actual cost that we will incur for the medical insurance and the MRF cost. I would also like to offer my very sincere gratitude for putting into the capital budget the renovation of our science lab at Beecher Road School. This is going to go a long way to furthering our science curriculum and filling the gaps that currently exist in our program, and I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions?
Michael Luther, Norfolk Road. We have no method within the budget as printed to focus on the fact that in addition to the amount listed on page 10 for the Woodbridge Board of Education, if one goes to page 30, the town is also assuming on behalf of the Board of Education for FY06, $773,405 in debt service. The issue came up at the budget hearing because that is not something that we are aware of in regard to the Amity budget, where the amount requested from the town includes the debt service. I do wish that there were some way the town document could break out for the citizens of our town the fact that in addition to the amount on page 10, we're looking at something in excess of another $750,000 that is for the Board of Education.
Anyone else? Hearing none, the next department is the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Finance proposed budget for 2005-06 is $418,783. Next department is the probate court, and the proposed budget is $7,800. Town clerk, $152,014. Registrar of voters, $39,874. General administration, $240,504. Information systems, $86,065. Finance department, $250,155. Tax collector, $104,283. Tax assessor, $136,269. Board of Tax Review, $2,500. Board of Finance, $243,470. Town planning and zoning, $43,238. Zoning Board of Appeals, $5,300. The center, $66,700. Publicly owned property, 0. Police Department, $2,312,154. Fire Commission, $348,975. Medical Services, $246,068. District Animal Control, $51,355. Building Department, $141,539. Public Works, $1,030,922. Waste Management, $613,660. Remediation, $46,908. Building Maintenance, $357,036. Human Services, $334,696. Recreation, $463,960. Pool and gym expense, $75,783. Parks Department, $160,612. Thomas Darling House, $5,050. Library, $642,932. Conservation Commission, $2,200. Inland Wetlands Commission, $51,162. Employee fringe benefits, $2,378,000. Debt service, $2,186,365. Capital expenditures, $1,070,940. Last call for any questions on any of the departments. Hearing none, moderator notes there are 250 chairs that were set up for tonight's meeting. The quorum is 250 to vote on the budget. The moderator notes that there is no quorum. The remaining items on the agenda, there is no requirement for a quorum, so the people in attendance, voters and taxpayers, can vote on the remaining items. The next item on the menu, next item on the agenda is item number 2 is to receive communication from the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, Camp Dresser, and the concerning the proposed transfer of the assets of the Woodbridge Sewer Authority to the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority. And I'm going to introduce Joe Ridge of Camp Dresser and the to make a presentation regarding that proposal.
Just way of introduction. My name is Joe Ridge. I work for an engineering firm called Camp Dresser We were hired in August of 2004 by the towns of Woodbridge, Hampton, and East Haven to conduct what we characterize as a due diligence review of the proposed sale of the three towns' wastewater assets to a new regional authority that would be created among the three towns plus New Haven. I'm not sure everyone's aware, but since the early 1960s, the wastewater from the three towns has been a town responsibility to collect that wastewater. It has then been conveyed to a regional wastewater treatment plant located in New Haven, treated and discharged. Under the proposal that's been developed by New Haven starting almost 2 years ago, I guess at this point, what would happen is there would, all of the wastewater assets, the pump stations, the pipes, and the treatment plant would be conveyed to this new regional entity, which would then take responsibility for all wastewater matters in the service area. We were hired to do this due diligence review to essentially evaluate whether the town's interest would be well served by this proposed sale. As I mentioned, the city of New Haven had been working on the proposal for almost 2 years. So it was really an attempt for the towns to make sure that they were getting the deal that was being proposed to them. And essentially we looked at three things. We reviewed all the documents, we determined what the red flag issues. Essentially red flag issues seemed something that would cause some concern for any of the three towns to rethink the deal. And then we only focused on the major policy and financial issues. A lot of the detailed operational issues can only be decided when the new regional authority is created and it has a board of directors and a staff and it starts providing services and figuring out how exactly they're going to provide services. We really evaluated 4 questions. Will the retail rates to the customers being provided service currently go up or down as a result of the proposed regionalization? Will service levels to the town and the town's residents change? And one of the concerns that the towns have is if this is a regional entity headquartered in New Haven, if there's a sewer collapse in one of the towns, will you get the response you need to deal with the problem, similar to how you do currently where you control directly that service? Are the future needs of the total system being accounted for? All of the wastewater systems in the 4 towns are all aging. They're expensive systems to maintain. And we wanted to make sure that as we looked at these financial projections, that those long-term capital improvements were reflected in the plans developed by New Haven. So you had a fair picture of what future rates were going to be and what your costs were going to be over time. The final issue we look at is the governance structure. How is this new regional authority going to be governed? Under the current structure, the 3 suburban towns are customers of New Haven. New Haven has a water pollution control authority. That board determines what capital improvements get made to the treatment plant, what rates are going to be, and under your agreements, you are allocated to share those costs. Under the regional authority, there would be a 9-member board. The city of New Haven would have 4 members. Hamden and East Haven both have 2 members, and Woodbridge has a single member. So the 3 suburban towns have a majority of the board, and so the governance structure is changing where the towns now have a direct input into what the new regional authority does and how it operates. In terms of general findings, the regionalization as it's been advanced is well structured, and the towns and the citizens of the town's interest should be well served. You should continue to get the level of service that you're used to getting. They have accounted for the long-term capital needs of the system will be over time, and the rate projections and other projections they've provided are reasonable. Go back one. Page up. Going a little fast now, Tony. One more. One of the important things for everyone to understand is how you're currently charged for sewer service from New Haven and how you will be charged in the future. Currently, what happens is the town of Woodbridge gets a bill from New Haven for the share of wastewater, for the amount of wastewater delivered to the New Haven's plant. It's a share of the total wastewater that is treated at that New Haven plant. Under the regional approach, they'll essentially go to a billing system that will bill you based on the amount of water that you consume in an individual residence or business. And so it takes out this wastewater flow thing. The effect of that is to shift costs in general from the 3 suburban towns to New Haven. So as a result of this regionalization, people in New Haven will pay a larger share of the treatment of the wastewater costs than they do currently. It's about a 5 to 7% differential. It's because of infiltration, and they're the last one in the chain right now, so they sort of make out the way they do the billing system, frankly. The other thing important to point out is, as a result of this regionalization, the new regional authority will essentially purchase the assets from the 4 towns. There'll be a direct equity payment made at the time the deal is closed. I have a table that shows you what that is. And in addition, there'll be an ongoing payment, a payment in lieu of taxes is what it's been characterized as, to each of the 4 towns, to essentially compensate the towns for the asset values in each town. I think I've already covered this, but the important thing is that from an engineering perspective and a long-term wastewater planning perspective, it's our evaluation that the New Haven plan does account, as best anybody can account for 30-year capital improvement needs. They've done a very good job of accounting for that, planning for that over the future. So the rate projections that have been provided appear reasonable. Now, there are all sorts of assumptions built into those that would cause them to change from what they're doing, but those changes would affect the towns, whether you stay in the existing wholesale customer basis or the regional approach. So we try to bracket things in terms of if you stay where you are now versus if you go forward with regionalization. They have developed a plan for operating the systems. It's a preliminary plan that's being subject to review by the state regulatory agencies now. But eventually what will happen is the treatment plant in New Haven is currently operated by a private firm under a contract that will continue. The collection systems in the 4 towns will also be operated under some similar arrangement with the same firm or a different firm, but there'll be standards of service that will be built into that contract. This graph tries to show what the shift in costs are. The big circle at the bottom is New Haven's share of the cost. The left side of that, the left pie, is what New Haven currently pays, and it's about 65%, I believe, 62%, and it will increase to about 68 to 70%. The town shares decrease proportionally. Woodbridge's share, you're less than 1% now, you continue to be less than 1%, but there is a reduction in Woodbridge's share. Go ahead, Ron. Now this is a summary of the financial evaluation. Right now in Woodbridge, a retail resident pays $134 a year for the first 9,000 cubic feet of water consumed. 9,000 cubic feet is about 65,000 gallons a year. For every 100 cubic feet above 9,000 cubic feet a household uses or a customer uses, you pay $2.70 per 100 cubic feet. We calculate that on average, the current average rate in Woodbridge is about $1.90 per ACF. But any particular customer's bill will depend on how much water you use because of this 2-tier system that's in effect. Now these are the long-term revenue requirement projections. The blue line, the lower line, is what we're projecting the result of total cost for all 4 communities, what it will be under the regional approach versus continuation under the existing intermunicipal agreement. And there is about a 10 to 15% savings on average across all 4 towns over about a 30-year period. Now this graph essentially is for Woodbridge only, and it compares the average rate under the two cases. It's projected that average rates for all the communities will increase over time because there's capital improvements that need to be made. The towns have work that needs to be done. The treatment plant needs to be upgraded over time. And that's the cause of most of the increase, but I'm sure nobody can read those numbers. In 2006, the estimate is that the rate in Hanover would be on average $2.09 per 100 cubic feet. It will increase to about $3.48 by the year 2015. Under the regional case, it would pay $1.84 per 100 cubic feet. It'll increase to about $3.13. So in Woodbridge's case, it's about a 15% reduction as a result of regionalization versus continuation under the existing service agreements. Just so everyone is clear, there's a large number of assumptions that were used to do these projections. It is believed that as a result of consolidating the four systems, there would be efficiency gains. Right now, each town has staff that does the billing for customers, that does maintenance of the sewer systems, maintenance of the pump stations. By essentially consolidating the four systems into one system, you'll reduce the staff requirement, the total staff requirements, and provide the same level of service. An important thing to understand is that the city of New Haven is under a federal court order to undertake a significant improvement to its system, to the regional system, in fact. And the towns will share in that cost. But in doing these projections, it's been assumed that, consistent with current state policy, that the state will pick up about 40%, 50% of the cost of that CSO project through grants. The other thing that will happen is that the city of New Haven, as the city of New Haven, will, under the agreements, pick up 40% of the cost of the CSO program, whatever those costs are. If those assumptions change, then the rate projections change, but the relative difference between the two cases does not change. Go ahead. This is the table that shows what each of the towns are going to get as a result of the sale of their assets to the new regional authority. Woodbridge is the second to the bottom line. It will receive an equity payment equal to just under $1 million, or $100,000. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading that, yeah. Yeah, the first column is what your share of the total asset value is, which is just under $1 million. You'll receive $541,000 at the time the deal is closed, which is projected to be August to September right now, is my understanding. And you have an ongoing payment of about $5,300. All the other towns receive proportionally more because they've got more of an investment in their system. If you can read the first column, the equity value column, the total value of the system, when there was an appraisal done by an independent appraisal firm, estimated that the total value for all four systems was about $104 million. The amount to be paid out to the four towns is $54 million. So in effect, there's $50 million that's not captured. I think that was essentially a decision by the working group involved in this, including the mayors and chief executive officers, that if they were to capitalize the entire amount of that equity value, rates would be higher than they would otherwise. So it was essentially a rate control issue that led them not to go up to the entire value of the system. Go ahead, Tony. In addition to these equity payments, the other thing that will happen as a result of this regionalization is that each of the towns has issued debt to finance improvements to its wastewater system. That debt will be assumed by the new regional authority, paid through the rates that I've already talked about. Woodbridge has approximately $300,000 in debt. There's not a lot of debt here. The other towns have proportionally more. But it essentially moves that debt off of your books to the regional authority's debt. I've already already talked a little bit about this. They are still developing the operational program. One of the ongoing issues is the staff's currently providing wastewater service under the existing intermunicipal agreement. This is really an issue only for East Haven and Hamden. Can become regional authority issues. The regional authority employees, they're working through with the various unions and contracts how that transfer of staff is going to take place. Woodbridge has made the decision that there are no full-time employees providing wastewater service. Those employees will be retained as town employees, and the amount of time devoted to wastewater services will be devoted to other productive uses. Let's skip this one. Service levels, there are a couple of things I wanted to point out because these were issues going forward. One I mentioned already was that the residents of the towns would be able to expect the same level of service that you currently receive. Those service levels are being built into the agreements that you have with the contract operator to ensure that the performance standards for them to meet. The other important aspect of that is that the town will have a representative, 1 of 9 on the board, who will be able to sort of monitor and oversee that those service levels are being provided. The second thing I wanted to point out is one of the issues that was a major issue, certainly for Woodbridge, to a lesser extent the other suburban towns, is how would extension of the sewer system be controlled? Clearly, the ability to put sewers into a town changes the character of the town, changes planning, what happens with planning within a town. The agreement that's been worked out, largely because of the influence of Woodbridge, is sewer extensions and increases in sewer capacity can only take place based on prior approval of the respective towns. So that a major sewer extension cannot take place in Woodbridge unless the Woodbridge selectmen, I believe is who ends up with the authority, has essentially approved it and petitioned the regional authority. So the towns continue to retain authority and control of their own local planning. Go ahead. Our overall conclusions are that the towns will be well served by regionalization. Rates for the 3 suburban towns on a retail basis will be less than most customers than they would have been otherwise. Importantly, from our perspective as wastewater engineers and planners, is there's now a funding base and an ability to make necessary capital improvements so you will be able to keep up with the infrastructure needs as they occur, and you'll have professional staff to manage that process. And the town, through its direct board members, will retain control over this regional authority, so it will not be sort of a runaway entity. You will have direct control over it. That should be it. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions or address any comments you may have.
Russ Arpaio, 70 Center Road. I do pay sewer bills. Can you tell me, please, how many accounts, sewer accounts are there in town?
It's less than 350 or less than 400.
Okay, and my question, I guess, is why was the $350,000 not credited back to the taxpayer? Why are we using that to buy open space?
Payments that are being presented on items 4 and 5 and 6. The question is as to why is there a proposal further on. Let me just answer the question because it's been raised. One of the things that the towns realized as we were looking at this proposal is that for a number of years, many years, the sewer authority has been receiving free services from town employees. The town employees who are paid by all of the taxpayers of Woodbridge, whether they have sewer services or not, were providing free services to the sewer authority, and the sewer authority was not paying the town back for those services. So the way the town works, just an example, we had it happen on Friday. is we used Public Works employees to address a sewer problem, and there was overtime involved. And traditionally, the town had not been asking the sewer authority to reimburse the town for those expenses. When we realized that mistake and how all the other towns had been charging and differentiating between the sewer users and what they paid through the sewer authority versus the taxpayers and what they were paying for all the other employees that were providing services for the town as a whole, we realized we had to go back and bill. And the sewer authority has received that bill and paid the town $350,000 for all of those, for in partial payment for those services over the number of years. That money then comes not to the sewer users, it comes to the town as whole. And the question for this body tonight is, what do you want to do with the $350,000?
Crisco, 1205 Westbrook Road. If the presenter of the presentation PowerPoint could clarify, you stated if Woodbridge wanted to either expand or decrease, to hypothetically, its source system, it could do it on its own, but instead it would have to petition the regional authority. Could you clarify that?
Yes, if Woodbridge wanted to have an expansion of its sewer system, the town would have to approve it, and then would have to petition to the regional authority to go forward with it.
The regional authority could deny it.
Right. The concern that developed through the negotiations and the discussion process with New Haven is the way the documents were originally drafted. The regional authority could decide they were going to expand the sewer into Woodbridge, and the town would have no control over that decision. So the onus on sewer expansions now sits with the towns, and then you need to convince the regional authority. It was really done to protect planning and zoning at the town level, rather than, in effect, allowing that to be overridden by the regional authority.
But the regional authority still has control. They can deny the petition.
They can deny it, but they cannot move forward without your
I understand that.
If I could, in the process, we were supposed to identify what we could see as potential needs for expansion. And as an example, we identified the Bradley Highlands area because the sewer authority noted to us that in the Bradley Highlands there have been some difficulties people have having with their septic system. So it's specifically acknowledged on the draft documents that there might need to be sewer expansion in the Bradley Highlands. The flip of that is that they couldn't come in and say, we want to expand sewers to all of Woodbridge, and the local town would have no say in that, which traditionally it has had.
So to clarify that, if there was an expansion proposal by the regional authority, the town could reject that.
Exactly.
Could you repeat the voting structure of the authority?
The voting structure is one representative for Woodbridge out of 9, even though Woodbridge is 1% of the customer base. 2 each for East Haven and Hamden, and 4 for New Haven. And we had to provide a provisional designation of who would represent Woodbridge initially, and the Board of Selectmen voted that that would be Ed Lieberman, who is currently chair of the Sewer Authority. We have also informally asked that the Sewer Authority could be able to stay on as an ad hoc committee to help and advise him in the beginning years of this process.
Regardless of the vote, which could be, 2 towns, acting together could really control what will happen. Does a town have the veto power over any decision by the regional water authority?
Only to add another municipality to the regional entity.
So as far as any decision that a town as a town is not in complete agreement with, they have no veto power. Thus they have.
No, but for certain major decisions, instead of a majority vote, it's a 2/3 vote.
Okay, numbers still don't work. Thank you.
questions? If not, I'm going to read the motion that for your information, at its meeting on April 4, 2005, the Sewer Authority voted unanimously to accept the resolution of adoption by the Woodbridge Board of Selectmen of an ordinance titled, quote, "An ordinance creating the regulated water pollution control authority," close quote. On April 4, 2005, the Town Planning and Zoning Commission considered an 8-24 review request from the Board of Selectmen and voted unanimously to approve the referral for the proposed sale/transfer of sanitary sewer easements and appurtenances, greater Canadian Water Pollution Control Authority. For Selectmen.
I just want to note a couple of other items that were discussed by the selectmen. The first is that in even entering these negotiations, the selectmen were cognizant of a very important fact, which is that New Haven currently has on its operating budget an assumption to the tune of several $1 million that this regional entity will be created and they will be paid. East Haven has a couple of $1 million. So what I want to explain is what the town was looking at is not sort of in the abstract, do we want to create this regional entity, but looking at, gee, we've got a couple of towns here who have major sort of operational budget reasons why they might create it, and it only takes 2 towns. Do we want to join in? Now, understand, nobody's voted on this, but I think all the time, New Haven's been a leader in proposing this. As I said, they've actually built it into their current year operating budget. East Haven has built it into their current operating budget. So the question has always been, as the selectmen authorized, the sewer authority authorized paying CDM and being part of these negotiations was, should Woodbridge join or not also? And I think one of the key things that Joe would confirm is that oftentimes there is no payment for your sewer assets, and if the town were to order or join an entity subsequent, we'd be unlikely to see $441,000 to us in payment, offered to us in payment of our sewer system. The other thing is that...
Yeah, just to confirm that, we've been involved in 6 or 7 similar regionalization, creation of regional authority from existing districts. This is the only one where we've seen cash actually move from the regional authority back to the equity owners. And it's pretty clear from the discussions that took place, because we actually were working with West Haven, that anyone who elects to try to join after the fact, it will not be equity payments made. It's sort of a one-time deal.
Just wanted to make that clear. The other thing is that it's not presented this evening because it's not appropriate to present it this evening. But if Woodbridge and other towns were to go forward with this, as was shown, the proposal is that the town would receive a payment of $541,000. We would receive that payment during fiscal year 06, not the current year. What Tony Genovese, as the finance director, and I have discussed is that we would recommend, if we receive that payment, to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and ultimately to a town meeting or a special town meeting, that that money be put toward a new firehouse. The important thing is that it's one-time revenue received for a capital item, so it should go back towards some kind of one-time capital project. And our particular recommendation is that it should go toward a firehouse. I just wanted people to be aware of that. There's been no vote by the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance. I can't represent that that's what they will do, but that is what we intend to recommend.
Kavanaugh, 72 Halsey Lane.
I just have a question for clarification.
The location is here in Andy Rosiani Street. Are those the assets of the present sewer commission?
This is just where the town has easements over property. Pipes.
went
I
through
was
those private
wondering-
pieces of property.
The Anzenia,
Pump stations.
That is, the pump station is on one of those pieces of property.
Okay, I was
Yes,
just wondering.
but it's not, all of the assets are not
Okay.
located in those pieces.
just,
Thank you.
Mike Walter from 95 Luciani Street. I'd just like to know if this sale does go through, you said in August or September, it's finalized, who's going to be responsible for recording our deeds that the easements are changed over to the from the Woodbridge Sewer Authority to New Haven, Greater New Haven? Will it be our town council?
That would be part of the legal documents that would be executed at that time, and they would be recorded at that time. Yes.
In a due diligence amount of time? I mean, it's not going to take them a month or two after that to record these?
They would be recorded on short promptly.
Okay.
Some of them are not, some of them, there are not recorded easements. So we've just identified properties where there may be an interest. So if you have a deed affecting your property, come see me.
Okay, thank you.
Russ Arpay again. I have to just make the comment that I am opposed to this move for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm sure that the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, when they discussed this whole option, I don't know if I don't think any of our Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance pay sewer bills. But I mean, I pay $6,000 a year in sewer bills. My point is that sewer rates have not increased in the past 10 years. It's always been, for less than 10 years I know of, it's been $134, whatever, thousand, is that? The rates have not changed in the last 10 years. You're telling us now that within the next 10 years, you're already telling us the rates are going to go up, what, $3 a unit, however you measure it. So, I mean, again, we're having rate increases here. I don't think that the best interest of the 350 people that pay sewer taxes was kept in mind. And I think that some of these taxpayers that pay sewer bills should be in the decision-making process. That's my opinion.
I've just asked Joe to come up and speak again to the rates increased with or without regionalization. One thing I would note is certainly I agree that the sewer user should have a say in this. We are precisely having an annual town meeting where everybody in the household in town received a notice, and to make it extra clear to sewer users, we put a special banner on the front of it to help to catch their attention.
I apologize for taking the graph down too early, but just so it's clear, when we did this evaluation, we projected what would happen if we stayed under the existing intermunicipal agreement with New Haven versus going to the regional entity. It's important to understand that Woodbridge is a customer under contract with the city of New Haven in effect, and you are contractually obligated to pay proportional share of their cost, which includes treatment and conveyance. The bulk of the increase that you see in the graph I put up, which would have under the existing interlocal agreement going from $2.09 per ACF on average to $3.48, is driven by the capital improvements that New Haven is mandated to make, will make under a federal court order, and New Haven and Woodbridge and the other two towns under their wholesale agreement contract with New Haven will pay proportionate share. So the increase you see is driven by actions that New Haven is required to take. What happens is if you go forward as a member of the regional board, the increase you see goes from about $1.84 to $3.13. So on average, you'll pay about 15% less than you would continuing under the existing structure. But the rates will go up over 10 years.
But just to clarify, the rates have not gone up under our old plan, and this is the big change. The rate has been the same, sir, for the last 10 years.
It's gone up under the cubic feet, dollars per cubic foot.
Chris DeLeon, 1087 Racebrook Road, member of the Sewer Authority. Your rates haven't gone up, but the infrastructure has failed. So it was a choice. Do we get rid of it now, we can get some money out of it, or we're going to dump $1 million into it over 10 or 20 years. This town, about 10 years ago, decided not to join the Connecticut Resource Recovery Act, or whatever it was. And being on the outside looking in, our tipping fees have gone crazy. So, it's your choice. Do you want to have the sewer authority with a member on the board to be able to look out for the town of Woodbridge? Rates are going to go up no matter what, but we can at least control some of them.
Anybody else want to be heard? If not, I'm going to read the recommendation of the board selected and ask for a motion. Pursuant to section 4-8 of the Woodbridge Town Charter, consider and vote on the transfer to the entity known as the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority of the following sewer easements: rights of way, rights, privileges, uses and appurtenances appertaining hereto for the purpose of providing wastewater management and water pollution control services to the extent the town of Woodbridge has any interest in the same for such purposes, subject to the enactment of an ordinance entitled, quote, an ordinance creating the Greater New Haven Water Pollution Control Authority, close quote, by the town of East Haven, the town of Woodbridge, the town of Hampton, and city of New Haven. Approval and execution of all related transactional documents by the foregoing enumerated municipalities, payment to the town of Woodbridge for the purchase price and assumption of all liabilities enumerated in the asset purchase agreement, and approval of the plan of operation by the State Department of Environmental Protection. Amity Road numbers 320, 330, and 360, Bradley Road number 1, Brookside Drive number 2, Lawrence Street number 58, Litchfield Turnpike number 1764, Old Amity Road number 291, Luciana Street number 73, 77, 79, 83, 85, 89, 93, and 95.
So moved as read.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not, my colleagues, please. All those in favor of the motion, please raise their hands. Okay, all those opposed? The ayes are 44, the nays are 4, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is to authorize the Board of Selectmen to purchase from the St. Thomas More Corporation property located at 160 Keys Road. Said property currently known as the Alegi Property, consisting of 3.04 acres, more or less, for a purchase price of $282,000, and to execute any and all documents and take any and all actions to effectuate the foregoing.
So moved as read.
Second. Second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. What is the intended use of this property, and will there be any deed restrictions on it?
There was a discussion of the Board of Selectmen on Wednesday evening on that precise subject. The Board of Finance specifically in authorizing or the recommendation to this body that $282,000 of in-kind sewer payments be used for this purpose, made a notation that the land was for, I believe, for general municipal purposes. Is that correct, Karen? I don't have the document in front of me. Is that what it was, for general municipal purposes? So there is no open space restriction proposed, and that is why the town has, the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance has recommended not open space funds, but this other money as a source of it. I would urge you to take a look at the meeting. My recollection from the meeting, and it is on tape, is that the discussion was that there was no specific purpose in mind at this time, but a number of things were recognized. Number one, given the difficulty that the town has had in siting a fire station, there was a recognition that there could be a need 20 years or so from now for this land, which has access to sewer and water for municipal purposes. So it was a relatively unusual opportunity to buy it for future needs, unspecified, at this price at 3 acres. The next was that there was some discussion that the Alegi property, the rest of it, when it was developed, there was some desire to have a practice field for soccer and other multi-use purposes. And then there was a very specific statement, I guess, that, as I said, I'm repeating myself, but it wasn't for general open space. It was not for open space, but it was differential future needs. Does anybody from the Selectmen or Board of Finance want to add to that? Did I catch it all? Any other? Okay, all right.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not all those in favor? Those opposed? Great, motion carries. Next item is to authorize the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to allocate the balance of $68,000 from the receipt of the in-kind service payments from the Sewer Authority to the fire station building reserve.
So moved as read.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
I want everybody to understand that this money can be used, if it's approved, by the Fire Station Building Committee in developing a proposal for the town. So this is money that would be worked toward in preparing a proposal for the town and ultimately a referendum on a firehouse proposal. So that's one of the reasons we're asking that this body approve this money so they can develop a second proposal for the town's consideration. There is currently, what, Tony, $47,000 left for the committee, and this money would supplement it to make sure they had enough to come forward with another proposal for consideration. And we don't know yet how much money they need. They're going out in an RFQ to seek architectural advice on that matter.
Any discussion? None, all those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Is there any other business to come before the town meeting this evening? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Yes, thank you.